There we go. What is up, my friends? And welcome to another edition of the XFL Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of XFL News Hub. And on this week's show, we talk about how the XFL plans to be different in 2023. This is from our man, Mike Mitchell, plus some USFL news, XFL and the NFL, and some fan controlled football, and so much more. Remember, if you like pro football, then like and subscribe to this channel. Set the notification bell so that when we go live every Monday at 8 p.m., you are notified for that. So remember, if you want to be part of the show, email podcast@xflnewshub.com with your thoughts, or record an MP3 or a video on your phone, and we'll play it on next week's show. It's that simple. And leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We're on Stitcher, Audible, Player FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, but specifically Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. Leave us 5 stars. We'll read it on the show. Be nice to us. And watch XFL News, XFL Week in Review live at 8 p.m. every Monday on the YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Remember, for YouTube and Facebook, hit that notification bell, and this way you are alerted as soon as we go live. Looks like the stream is strong. I figured out what the issue might be there. And remember, again, give us a like right now. Go smash the like button. And if you like pro football, then subscribe to this channel, whether it's on the Facebook, on Twitch, or on the YouTube. We really appreciate that. So this week we were going to be like, cool, let's talk about the USFL news. Apparently it was kicked off. It might be punted, so to speak, and it's supposed to be happening this week. We've heard from one source specifically that we thought was in the know, is saying that basically this week we will hear from the USFL. We have some USFL news on the social media aspect, some changes that have happened, which could be a precursor to what's to come here. I'm wearing my DC Defenders sweatshirt. Hopefully the XFL still has a DC Defenders. And it's cold in Maryland. It's cold finally. We're in November. It's November 15th, 2021. Things are starting to get colder now. I just ran I'm working on the Disney Marathon. Ran my first 14 miles yesterday in the cold. My hands were frozen. I can't wait to go to Florida. I don't mind the cold weather. It's cool. Like, we're getting in the Christmas spirit here. You know, you got Thanksgiving is next week, my friends. The Thanksgiving week, I should say, and then we got into the holiday season, the Christmas season, and who knows what will come with the XFL. I'm not really thinking that anything big else is gonna come from the XFL. We have to start thinking, and I'm thinking next week we start talking about what a timeline predictions might be, just because. I mean, now you're getting into Thanksgiving. The USFL will have its moment hopefully this week, and it definitely wouldn't be during Thanksgiving week. Then you got in December. Maybe the XFL makes announcements, but I don't think the XFL is going to talk about teams or coaches until maybe December, but then they don't have any merch. So I'm thinking that we're really not going to get much from the XFL from here on out, but we will definitely get a lot of USFL news because camp starts in March. So the USFL will be something, but we'll keep track of all of that stuff, my friends. That being said, what's up to everybody in the chat room on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch? Now let's just get into the week that was the XFL. It's the bumper time. I'm going to click the button. So our man Mike Mitchell had this article of how the XFL plans to be different in 2023. This came out today, as a matter of fact. He's been working on this for a while. The XFL working with the NFL, new team locations, a brand new way of marketing a sports league by giving fans unprecedented year-round behind-the-scenes access, a league that is a global convergence of live entertainment and sports. Those are some of the possibilities of the new XFL. Now, one thing that Mike Mitchell has heard is that the XFL changes are basically around the margins. Now, this is very important. So the 3-year layoff between games being played would inevitably see the XFL have to reset or reassess their business arrangements with their 2020 locations. Don't expect wholesale team name and location changes in 2023. You heard it here first from our man, insider Mike Mitchell. But as sources close to the XFL have indicated to me for months, there are going to be some, quote, some changes around the margins. So what this is basically saying is don't be surprised if the locations stay the same and the team names stay the same, but maybe there's some variance in those margins. What those margins is, we don't know. There's also the global element that the XFL ownership has openly talked about. No doubt the XFL is aiming for a worldwide outreach with their league, evidence of their talks with the Canadian Football League on a potential alignment. But you can't rule out the possibility that the XFL could still journey not only to Canada in the future, but also other far-reaching and untapped markets globally like Mexico. But clearly, if they're going around the margins in 2023, I don't think we would see a team in Canada, and I don't think we would see a team in Mexico in 2023. That's just my opinion. The sudden change, of course, to XFL Shop, where users are informed of the new XFL Shop coming in 2022, has many speculating about potential upcoming changes with the team names, locations, and logos. Could the XFL have redesigns of their existing team names and logos from 2022, or will the new team names and logos be revealed? Speculation in the past has been some of the XFL's underperforming markets in 2020, like Los Angeles and Tampa, could be relocated with the Wildcats and Vipers setting up shop somewhere else. But what if the Vipers and Wildcats are no longer part of the XFL? That doesn't seem like margins, does it? Although I haven't heard anything concrete on the front yet, inevitably one or two or maybe even more of the XFL teams play in different locations than they did back in 2020. The league is starting anew, and with that, they have come new venue agreements at the bare minimum. Now, we've talked about, teams, the San Antonio is a possibility, San Diego. And remember, the original XFL didn't go in certain locations because the AAF had already set up shop there, and I don't think they really are too concerned about the USFL because they're basically kind of in different zones. But maybe they are kind of keeping an eye on what the USFL might do. Now, could Dwayne Johnson's relationship with outfitters like Under Armour lead to XFL teams getting new looks and gear? Yeah, that's entirely possible. And do not be surprised if the rollout of new merchandise is part of XFL's promotion and marketing efforts. So once the store comes live, then everything else is going to be live in relation to what the league has in store from presentation standpoint through all the media channels during 2022 and leading to 2023. That I cannot wait to get some merch. Hopefully the DC Defenders will stay. I was talking the other day to one of my kids and my wife about how excited I am to basically be able to, hopefully they have some more press conferences. Audi Field was a great spot. We could totally do it again. To be there, to cover it again after everything that's craziness that happens would be pretty cool. Maybe The Rock or Danny Garcia or even Russ Brandon would be there. We can talk to him. Now, the real-life Ballers. For those who have never seen HBO series Ballers, which aired from 2015 to 2019, the show centers around Dwayne Johnson as Spencer Strathmore, former NFL player turned financial manager who, spoiler alert, eventually becomes an NFL owner. Interesting thing is, me and my wife started watching it. It was a little risque, and that's not her style. She's Hallmark movie type girl. Not, you'll know what I mean if you watch the pilot episode of the Ballers, but I'll probably have to watch it myself. The show chronicles his dealings with college and pro athletes. John David Washington, a former running back who played in the United Football League, co-stars in the series with Johnson playing an NFL wide receiver. Oh yeah, DJW has a famous father named Denzel, by the way. The series followed Johnson Strathmore as he made deals with players, helped the NFL team move to Vegas, and also landed Patrick Mahomes a new contract. Could reality imitate art? Well, that's where the new XFL is headed, with Dwayne Johnson's journey along with Danny Garcia and others being documented in a reality TV series that follows the league owners as they build the league up brick by brick. Think of it as making the XFL series only with The Rock at the forefront as the league unveils its teams, players, uniforms, coaches, etc. That's the plan for 2022. And the XFL's Inside the Trenches type documentary will serve as a rampway towards the league getting back on the field in 2023. Awesome. That would be so huge if that's the plan. Could a recruiting trip from Dwayne Johnson's former D-line coach Ed Otterington be in store? He was Johnson's defensive line coach when Johnson played at Miami. He couldn't rule it out. The XFL's rollout and presentation of their league will extend beyond just watching the games on traditional linear television. It's been the goal from day one to expand the exposure into many streams of distribution that fit the evolving landscape. The goal from a business end is for the league to eventually pay for itself and ultimately for the brand to be a year-round entertainment package rather than just a 3-month entity that exists solely during the games. This is good business for us here at XFL News Hub, clearly. Just even announcing a show and it being on once a week would drive traffic to this site. One of the XFL's upcoming major announcements will be centered around how they plan on accomplishing that. We also saw Danny Garcia's little picture here. If you're listening on the podcast, you can't see it. But if you see right above the XFL ownership update, you see that little logo there, and it kind of looks like the NFL logo, perhaps. It's easy to ignore the overzealous people that spotted the Easter egg, like the one XFL co-owner Danny Garcia's Instagram photograph that we just talked about. The NFL logo towards the upper left corner under the XFL ownership binder, if you look closely. Perhaps a foreshadowing of what's the future for the XFL. Perhaps the NFL logo was simply there because of the presentation papers and business outline of both properties. We don't know. Mike says, I blew it off too as a simple coincidence or window dressing and nothing more than that. However, as someone who routinely operates in the shadows, as an obligation, I looked into it, and what I found is that there is more than meets the eye to this Easter egg. That's right. Mike Mitchell is saying this NFL thing up here in this Danny Garcia picture, there is more to it than just than meets the eye. Isn't that the Transformer deal? The XFL is not only leaving the door open for a potential working agreement with the NFL, they are hoping for it to happen one day. Of course, everybody did. It might not be an overnight thing, but that's one of the goals. Who wouldn't want to partner with the NFL in some capacity, but I don't even know how that would translate. Who knows? Nothing can be more different from the XFL in 2023 than for this future iteration to not only welcome but seek out a potential partnership with the all-time titan in the sports world known as the NFL. The XFL in 2020 wasn't combative by the NFL by any means. Nothing like its original installment in 2001. The whole premise of doing things better than the NFL does, the terms of transparency, rules, and presentation. Where they embraced gambling, now the NFL kind of does that. So the XFL in 2023 welcoming the NFL with open arms is an about face from 2020, but why and how could something like this work? As they say, follow the money. Not only does XFL co-owner Jerry Cardinale and Redbird Capital Partners have connections with the NFL and their teams, but one of their top partners, managing director Kevin LaForce, was a crucial figure in the NFL's business developments. Up until recently, he was a significant player for the NFL and is one now with Redbird. Just some background on LaForce. Business partnerships with the NFL, making deals. He was part of the value, $110 billion worth of NFL stuff. He was oversight, including NFL's partnership with AT&T connection. So he's got YouTube, Twitter, the whole thing. This guy has made the NFL a ton of money. Would the goal of the current XFL mirror the aim of the AAF, which attempted to have the NFL buy them outright for the sole purpose of being its exclusive development league? Not necessarily. I don't think they would do that at all. The XFL would be looking to partner with the NFL in terms of marketing and cross-promotion. Think of it as allies in the same landscape. The developmental aspect would be by default. Hashtag PJ Walker and Taylor Heineke. Look no further, of course, and all the players from the XFL that play in the NFL. So the NFL totally, they don't need to do anything. That just would just happen anyway, as kind of being a minor league. It also is quite telling that the XFL's new executive team has several people with direct ties from the NFL, like Mike Ross, Russ Brandon, etc. Danny Garcia and Dwayne Johnson's trip to New York may have been to meet with their partners at Redbird Capitals, but remember, NFL offices aren't too far away. And once upon a time, Oliver Luck met with Roger Goodell. But with Redbird meets with heavy hitters, it's usually business involved. Don't be surprised if the XFL has a business relationship with the NFL in the near future. Hello, CFL. You missed out. Another time and space, we'll delve into the pitfalls of abandoning things that were made the XFL endearing in 2020. Just something to keep in mind. This is Mike Mitchell throwing some Easter eggs out there for you. So what do you think, not only of a reality TV show coming, which is something that he's talked about a lot? You have the potential partnership with Under Armour, a TV show that would chronicle everything going on in the league in 2022, which would be fantastic. Hopefully we can get in on that. And a potential partnership with the NFL. XFL games on the NFL Network would be a good thing. Potential show on the NFL Network would be a good thing. A show on NBC would be fantastic on primetime on a Thursday night. But even a show on NFL Network would be great. Or games or replays on the NFL Network. Who knows, my friends? So what do you think about Mike Mitchell's take on how the XFL plans to be different in 2023, including do some teams stay the same name? I think they'll keep all the names, but a definitely possibility that they could change locations. Let us know what you think and leave us a comment on this. How a potential NFL expansion could impact the XFL. Our man Matt Nagashima wrote this one up. If you haven't heard, the NFL recently, this was on a recent airing of BK and Ferrero, NFL insider Benjamin Albright, who's talked about some of the XFL stuff, spoke on the NFL's desire to move up from 18-team divisions to a total of 36 in the league. The sites that would have been thrown up as potential expansion sites to begin with would be London, Toronto. What would Jacksonville think about London? Toronto, San Antonio, and possible St. Louis. In light of the NFL moving up to the 17-game slate to increase revenue, it does seem like there would be tangible movement to grow, and the scheduling perks could be a bonus. So what do we make of these four cities Albright mentioned? And he goes into detail. London, but again, we talked about the Jaguars. Toronto has always been a name out there as far as the NFL being there. I feel like in the past, Toronto has been used as a pawn in the NFL's game, with maybe not really serious. Especially, I mean, the NFL is looking at not only the data from Toronto, but can they sustain an NFL franchise? If they look at the Argos, they could be worried, but they are the NFL. That might be kind of a thing for the NFL. You have to look at San Antonio. But again, how many teams do you want to have in Texas? I mean, San Diego lost a team, but San Antonio would be a great city. That could impact. I don't think any of these things per se could impact the XFL per se, but San Antonio could. And the other one is St. Louis. Now, what I'm hearing about St. Louis is that St. Louis getting a franchise, if you're talking about any of these cities, London, Toronto, and San Antonio, St. Louis is up there as a potential marketplace, which kind of would be cool, but then it wouldn't be cool because I really love the fact that the Battlehawks were in St. Louis. That could impact the XFLs because St. Louis is basically the biggest and most excited city for the XFL, and they embraced the Battlehawks, and that would be great. St. Louis, I wouldn't be surprised in the next 4 years, if not maybe even shorter, that the St. Louis will get a new NFL franchise. There is this whole litigation between the Stan Kroenke people and the Dome and all of this stuff. There are lawsuits that basically the NFL, from my understanding, reading the tea leaves, is that the NFL knows that they're going to lose and it's worth billions of dollars settlement. And the easiest thing that they could do is just put a franchise in St. Louis and be done with it rather than dealing with the fallout of this lawsuit. So that's something to keep in mind. And how that impacts the XFL, I would assume. Now, remember, these guys are playing different times of the year, but certainly the Battlehawks would lose its luster and excitement in the city if St. Louis was getting an NFL franchise. Something to think about in the future. And the players from Redbird, Danny Garcia, and The Rock are definitely keeping an eye on a potential NFL expansion and how could that affect the XFL.
This week,
the USFL updates its Twitter account, gives some new handles, adds Instagram and Facebook verification or validated. So it looks like the USFL 2022 rumored announcement this week is gaining steam. Why? Because the USFL has secured and verified several of its Twitter accounts, Instagram, and Facebook social channels. Thanks for the hint from @USFL News. The USFL Twitter account has been verified with some new header images. He has a picture there. You can see with the USFL, the helmet, all that kind of stuff looks cool. I'm down with it. Also, the Twitter handles USFL on Fox and USFL Comms were verified as well. You can see all the accounts joined in November. So these accounts are new. They got verified very quickly. Some people, like us, have trouble getting verified, but clearly their connections got them verified quick. Each one says, of course, coming spring 2022. The USFL is also verified USFL on Fox on Instagram, as well as USFL Comms is also on Instagram. Each account has been updated with recent posts in November. Remember, everything is updated in November. Unfortunately, as Reed from Markcast pointed out, USFL2.com is kind of lame. USFL football, or I don't know, but who knows? Those things have been taken. Also, when you look at the USFL Twitter account, who they're following, you can see Joel Klatt's name. Klatt was part of the XFL broadcast crew on Fox. He could be a leading voice in the USFL, so they're following him. USFL on Fox, and of course, Fox PR, college football, and Fox Sports. This could be a big week for all football fans with last week's XFL hiring news. We expect something real soon from the USFL. We're hearing this week, that it is coming. Stay tuned to XFL News Hub, of course, for all your USFL news, because we're covering both leagues, not only USFL, but XFL as well, and fan control football. We expect this week could be the week that we hear some USFL news, because next week is Thanksgiving. You're not going to get anything there. And now you're talking December, bro. You're running out of time, my friends from the USFL. It's got to be this week. We get requests all of the time from football players wanting tryouts with the XFL or USFL. We tell them always Hub Football. We cover Hub Football on XFL News Hub. That is a great place for football players to get their name out there. Also, you can try your luck at Fan Control Football. They released their 2021-2022 Combine schedule. If you're interested in playing in Fan Control Football, you can sign up if you go to player.fcf.io and apply. There's links on XFL News Hub in the article. Or you can go to Fan Control Football, just Google that. So it's scheduled December 4th, Arlington, Texas. December 18th, Los Angeles, California. January 8th, Atlanta, Georgia. Orlando, February 5th. And again in Atlanta, Georgia on February 26th. They say, got someone who you want to see in the Fan Control Football, tag us in one of their posts to show what it takes. They've got already, think you've got what it takes. They have it on Twitter, so you can sign up there. So if you're interested in joining the Fan Control Football, remember, they're on NBC Universal. They have a bunch of streaming partnerships. Before they started on Twitch, they've upgraded. They've gotten adding new teams, doing stuff with the NFTs, which I'm excited about. They're doubling their size from 4 teams to 8 teams. With the original core, 4 core coming back, the Wild Aces, Beasts, Zappers, and Glacier Boys. I'm going with one of the NFT teams. I haven't quite figured out which one yet. Super excited about that. And it'll be a lot of fun. You can watch them on Twitch as well as watching them on NBC somewhere. We haven't gotten that schedule yet. So if you're a football player interested in playing pro football, while you're waiting for the USFL, or the USFL doesn't work out. Or you just do this. So you got fan control football, you got hub football, and you've got the USFL coming your way. All right, my friends, we'll take a commercial break and we'll be back with your social media stuff right after this. Stay tuned, my friends.
This week on the Markcast, big XFL news, a lot of stuff happening. Holy cow. Reed was asking for a while. Do something. Like, he was like the meme with the stick with the guy poking XFL logo saying do something, and they're finally doing something.
It is the fellowship of the XFL. I'm very proud of that. We have our 9 hires, including Wes Brandon, Jay Rothman. We have all the big heavy hitters, NFL Network, NBA, Arash, come at us with all your criticisms of the hires of the XFL. We have XFL president and leadership hired.
Very cool stuff. We're also still talking CFL stuff. We've got 3 guests this week. Dan Ralph, our CFL Hall of Fame writer and friend of the show from the Canadian Press.
Been in this job for 30 plus years, and I've seen it do this, but mostly this. And I wish I had an answer for you. Because if I did, I would bottle it and I would sell it to the highest bidder.
Chris Edwards, he is the senior live event producer for TSN. I asked Chris the question that everyone wanted me to ask. So can you put me in contact with whose decision it is to play What You're Made Of 87 times at every single CFL game?
We do have a deal with Universal Music, and they do like to push certain artists, and we like to find, especially with that song, which I got to tell you, it's definitely grown on me, and we'll find sometimes in the truck that we're clapping the hands along to it.
And Adam Goss, the PA announcer for the Toronto Argonauts, which is really America's CFL team.
Well, aren't you lucky? You get to talk to me the day before the biggest Argo game in about 4 years, so congratulations. You'll notice I'm drinking a little bit of tea. I plan on having an active voice tomorrow night, and hopefully with any luck, it's a little hoarse from celebrating.
And a new way to contact us and interact with us. This is a cool thing that Reed did.
Yeah, you can leave us voicemails now. We have a lot. We're playing your comments. We're talking feedback, but we have a big show. We got USFL next week. We got good guests lined up. XFL stuff this week. Your CFL Week 15 preview. Big Argonauts Hamilton game. We're selling out BMO. Everyone's going crazy. Adam's got a flag falling off the wall in his interview.
That's all happening this week. We're getting ready for the final playoff push in the CFL, and we'll have you all covered this week on the Markcast.
All right, my friends, we are back. I can't hear the audio, and then I don't know what's going on. Anyway, what's up, chat room? Hello, we got Paladin Demo, Z Assassin. Sound very scary, gentlemen. Stock Speed Tech says, can't wait for more news. Me too. Tilt Brooks says, I hope Vince buys it back. I don't think that's happening, Broski. Richard says, I think they're going to change locations. Tilt Brooks says, Dallas should move to San Antonio, Alamo Dome. I don't know why. I think Dallas is fine. I wonder if Houston moves, but Dallas could too. Zach says, I don't believe St. Louis will get an NFL expansion team. I think the city is done with the league, and the league is done with the city. The only way I see is even remotely possible of working out as if, I think it's the new team. I think it's going to be some kind of lawsuit. Tilt Brooks says, what does the Houston Roughnecks new logo look like? Clearly, that's going to have to be redone. There's no question about that. Zach says the new teams use the same business model as the Green Bay Packers, where the season ticket holders are part of the team as opposed to one big shot owner. Richard says, I agree Dallas teams should move to San Antonio or Austin, Texas. Jason checking in. There will be a team in St. Louis, but the fans will always be loyal to the Battlehawks. I hope so. I hope that if there's an NFL team, that the fans are still loyal to the Battlehawks and they still bring in big numbers. The XFL needs to quit talking and take the field already. Yeah, we know. Paladin says, just bring the Battlehawks back as is. I agree with that, my friends. We'll get into some more of your chat stuff as well. Also, what's up to everybody on Twitch? And, of course, the Facebook as well. We always like to hang out with our friends on the Facebook. We'll get to your social media stuff. Remember, if you're watching the stream at any point in your life, Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. If you like football, then subscribe to XFL News Hub, my friends. We appreciate that. And give us a like also on the Facebook and Twitch as well. Let's get into some of our social media stuff. First up, we'll hit the Facebook. Speaking of which, about how the XFL plans to be different in 2020. Hey, I thought this wasn't supposed to show my cursor. There we go. About how the XFL plans to be different in 2023. Michael says, I don't know why the XFL won't sue Washington team for using defenders and sue Cleveland Indians for using guardians. If the Kansas City Chiefs change their name because it's supposedly racist and offensive, they will go take the Battlehawks, and when XFL comes up with another name, the NFL will just take that name. That's true. James says, if LA relocated, San Diego is the easy choice. Tampa would be better off in Orlando, but where else could we see them go? That's a good point on those two aspects of it. How potential expansion could impact the XFL. Lots of reaction here. Michael says, that ain't hard to figure out. NFL expansion hurts the CFL too. Every little boy growing up playing football dreams of NFL glory. Any other league never comes to mind. True. Kenneth says, I think Mexico is better logistically than London. Put one team north of the border, one team south. If London were added, I would hate to see that LA flight. That's true too. Unless you do London on, and then you have, yeah, that would just be tough. That London, I don't know. Then the London has to travel. That would be tough. Dan says, move the Jaguars to Toronto. No, I want the Jaguars to stay in Jacksonville. Rebrand under the Argos name. Oh, remaining CFL teams merged with the XFL. No London expansion. Remember, they're talking about, okay. D says, why not the XFL teams merge into the National Football League? Because they're not interested. Brandon Wonderlick, that could be a thing in the future. Could you imagine that? Well, no, because they're going to have teams in the same cities. NFL expansion. Will they finally bring a professional team to Detroit? Oh, Brandon with the zinger there. Dan says, good. Derek says, at least 4 teams in the NFL need to disappear. Not enough talent to fill out 32 teams with worthy players. Less teams would result in better play from top to bottom. Now, that's an interesting point Derek brings up. I would say this. That's where the XFL would come in. I think that would be one angle if I'm the XFL talking with the NFL about working together. I'd be like, listen, you don't have enough quality players to potentially add 2 new teams to that need that extra training. Give the XFL 2 or 3 years to develop some players because not everybody peaks outside of college, and not everybody peaks. No one peaks being on the practice squad, but give these guys a chance in the XFL to run around and play games a year or 2 in the XFL. Then you could start then you would have enough player talent to move them over. Just think if the NFL adds teams, what that would do to the USFL, XFL, and the CFL too. You could poach some guys from there. I could think of a couple players in the CFL that I'm like, why aren't you in the NFL? So if the NFL is really thinking about expanding, they really need some type of farm system that will develop talent to move the talent over. Otherwise, the gameplay could suffer. It's not suffering right now. Everything is great. It's taken it a while. And there's plenty of college football places out there and to grab players. And the XFL at least demonstrated that there are good players out there. But we need time to develop those players, and that's where a partnership with the XFL, that would be the one angle that the XFL could use with the NFL and just say, yo, you guys want to expand, you're going to have to develop players not just from college football, but from somewhere else, and let that be us. PJ Walker becomes QB1 for the Panthers. I had up here somewhere, I'll have to look, the numbers. Of course, both PJ Walker and Taylor Heineke won this past week, which was great, even though PJ Walker would come out and I want to say Cam Newton came in. But still, they played and they both won. Just pointing it out. Jordan says, and QB1 for my fantasy team, and I'm the only one in America will have started 2 XFL QBs. Josh Johnson might have been to get signed too. Parham at tight end, 3-6 record might explain something. Jay, did they not get the memo that Camo is back in Carolina? I don't know why they signed him. Decision making is an injury. Daniel posts that. PJ Walker, I'll pull up his numbers here in a second. Actually, I can do it now if you give me a second. What do we got for PJ's numbers? I posted them on the Twitter. Well, let's get into Instagram real quick while I pull that up on the Insta. Officials that are part of the agreement about Birmingham next week, of course. Cullen says, didn't they say that last week? Yes, they did. But then somebody else said this. So, I mean, this happens. I don't know what to tell you, my friends. I don't know what to tell you that this happens. There. Let's go to my PJ Walker deal. Dun, dun, dun. They did good. I retweet a lot. Here we go. All right, let's get to the Twitter. First up, Taylor Heineke was 26 of 32, 256 yards and a touchdown and a win. PJ Walker was 22 of 29, 169 yards and an INT and a win. But he got taken out. And I just put, who's next? Who is next that is going to... there are players out there. Oh, this is terrible. Can't even see it. On the Twitter thing. Okay. But those are the numbers there for those guys. And they did good. But we'll see what happens with PJ Walker this upcoming week. On how the XFL plans to be different, at Harrison Durst STM1, he says, I feel like the USFL is going to feel closer to what we had in 2020 than the XFL in 2023. The new XFL is trying to go so big so fast and then toss in a potential official NFL partnership, and I don't know what to think about it, but I hope it isn't an official minor league. I agree there, and it won't be an official minor league. Well, I guess this is pretty, this is from at Real USFL Commish. I'm happy to say that for once, unlike their stepmother, Melina, Eric, and Donald Jr. actually used their hands and finished the job. This is from USFL Commissioner. And it's a picture of the Donald from back during the USFL. If you hadn't have a chance to check out, and I am watching it now, is ESPN has a 30 for 30 about what happened with the USFL. I just started watching it. And remember, we had Paul Reitz on, and he was, this was the owners, they were running out of money, and they kind of owners ruined it. This one is basically talking all sorts of trash I'm just like 15 minutes into it about the Donald. So we'll have to see how that goes watching that. But there is an ESPN 30 for 30 about the USFL. I think you should check it out. I'm going to try to get somebody on that was part of that. But that the USFL news this week, he says it's the week of YAG 1968 says it's the week of November 15th. It is. And when it got pushed back, hopefully it'll be this week. If not, I don't know what to tell you. At XFL Analyst, about our question about the different plans, he says, my prediction, Tampa to Orlando. I agree with that. LA to San Diego or Oakland, and Dallas to San Antonio. I think those are pretty good predictions. Even though the Dallas market was pretty solid, I believe San Antonio would be the move. They had over 27,000 average attendance when the AAF was in town, way better than Dallas's 17,000. I will agree with you there. And I'll also throw in another point about Dallas and San Antonio is Dallas's stadium was meh. The converted baseball stadium, I'm not sure how that experience is, where in San Antonio the experience of a game would probably be a lot better. And you're right. I mean, if you can have San Antonio at 27,000 and Seattle at 27,000 and St. Louis at 27,000, I think that would be huge. about that. Kenny Brown 131 says St. Louis versus Kroenke NFL will probably end up at most a multi-million-dollar settlement. Expansion into St. Louis difficult due to stadium. Plus, it's not just one team expansion. LA will be back largely due to TV market. Orlando, San Antonio inherits a team. Well, we'll see about that. We will see, my friend, about that. Earl Kahn says we need an XFL in San Antonio. If the XFL is going to do anything during this whole switcheroo, throwing a team in San Antonio would be big news. I don't know why, but I feel like Houston might be the team and not Dallas. Even though it'd probably be Dallas, my outside, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it would be Houston, because is Houston going to play at a college stadium? Or they want to move to San Antonio and play in a big stadium? And Dallas is a big market. Kenny also says if XFL are providing full year content, it points to major TV markets being utilized. New York, LA, Florida, use of TikTok, Instagram central to communicating stories and links to fantasy gambling should be encouraged to build that under 18 to 40 demographic. Totally agree with you there as well. At the underscore MLS, the XFL will return to St. Louis if they settle with the NFL. I think they would, regardless, I think they would return to St. Louis. And at Tshore34 says, I think it will be fine. I think St. Louis will do well for attendance 11 when they get an expansion team for the NFL. I mean, I think so too. It just takes that super zing that St. Louis has with the Battlehawks if they get an NFL team. But I don't think that thing is going to happen anytime soon, my friends. Let's see. We got anybody on the Facebooks? And let's check YouTube. Lots of things going on YouTube. Let's see here. Jose says 2023 relocation city wish list: San Antonio Renegades, San Diego Wildcats, OKC Roughnecks. Name change: Sacramento Dragons. No. St. Louis Battlehawks. Hartford Defenders. No. Hartford does not take my DC Defenders. They did just fine. Orlando Vipers and New Jersey Guardians. Richard says, I like USFL Twitter handle. Zach says, I would support the move, but I am just me. I can't speak for entire city. It does not look at all likely they would. DC Defenders aren't going anywhere. Paul says, keep the Vipers in Tampa. I just don't know if they that Orlando Vipers thing has been something. All Stare Fannel says, I predict that ESPN Disney will televise XFL games. I hope so. And Angel Pimp Talk 101, interesting name. NFL has international set up. If you saw Hard Knocks, this could very well giving those players a home to hone their skills. NFL as an international setup. You'd have to expand on that one. I haven't. You talking about the new Hard Knocks? What Hard Knocks are you talking about? David says the XFL needs a team in Omaha, Nebraska. They're starving for a pro team. Also get a team in Portland. They would welcome it with open arms. Interesting cities there. Let's go to the YouTubes, shall we? Here we go. Lots of chatter. Andy says the USFL has over 3 years of playing in the spring. Trump led the owners to a move to the fall and go head-to-head with the NFL and win its lawsuit. The USFL figured it had a victory in court and play at the same time of the year would force a merger. They were awarded $3 and it was over. Darren says, you know who was also completely to blame for the demise. He had a meeting with Pete Rozelle behind the USFL owners' backs and asked what it would take for him to get in the NFL. He was told point blank by Rozelle he would never get into the league as long as Rozelle or anyone associated with him had anything to do with the NFL. Then Trump brought the lawsuit and left a $250 million ESPN Spring TV contract on the table. At the conclusion of the trial, the Giants owner sitting next to Trump in the courtroom took $1 out of his wallet and told Trump, here you go, paid in full. The USFL was done. That also led Trump's hatred of the NFL to this day. That mad failed attempts to buy Colts, Bills, Patriots, all blocked by the leagues and its owners. maybe that was part of the ESPN documentary. But again, we read talks. And I don't think it was. He was saying it wasn't just Trump. That it was others too, as the owners, and they basically wanted to merge with the NFL, and that was a kind of last ditch resort. DJP says Finn like dude thought we discussed this 5 minutes, bro. Okay. Daniel says, like Paul's point on the league not being able to get NFL players, this is so true. NFL players didn't earn nearly as much as they do now. True, Isaiah, I hope you do a list of players you would like to see in the XFL and USFL. That would be dope. Okay, that's a good idea. We can do that. Good show, says James Messner. Appreciate that. USFL for forever, says, I, for one, understand why Fox is taking the bubble approach because, let's face it, even with $100 million behind the new league, it can easily be derailed a la XFL 2020 because of no fault of their own. The difference between other leagues and the USFL is that the USFL still has that name brand recognition. This is one of the reasons I created USFL Forever YouTube channel over 10 years ago, to preserve the legacy and document the league itself. I didn't want it to be forgotten. I was able to find a majority of the games, edit them, clean up the glitches, and audio upload them. I can tell you it has been a great experience. USFL Forever. Check out his channel. Very cool. Very cool. I've also heard people say, like, the XFL has a brand problem, that it's tarnished, and they should change it. I don't think the XFL has a brand problem. Remember, the AAF wanted the XFL brand. The XFL, the Rocket, Danny Garcia, they're not changing the XFL brand. They know it's football. It just didn't get a chance. And after 1 year, the XFL and a successful launch and coming back, and fans had fun. Everybody had fun with the XFL. I think things will be fine when it comes to the name. And the USFL is a good name too. And like Paul had said, my concern too is if they don't embrace the past whatsoever, that would be a bad news. But they did bring back Doug Flutie, didn't they? And some other names. So who knows? Who knows with that? On to some emails before we wrap up the show. Hugo says, hi, can you please tell me if teams or leagues will open tryouts or how to apply them? Is there age limit? Instead of years, I'm from Venezuela and finished my college there. Also, Jordan checking in says, when I reach out, want to be a tryout with the Houston Roughnecks. Both players, I would tell you this, hub football is the main thing that you need to do to get involved with these leagues. Fan control football is another place for you to look. I haven't heard anything about USFL tryouts or combines or any of those things. Hopefully we'll get some of that this week. And, of course, nothing with the XFL. Maybe there might be – I would love if they brought back those summer showcases again. Those were fun, and I would love to go back and do that again and be able to interview players and get video of players and really kind of do it up. Because I went last year. It was an amazing facility that they had it at. Took some pictures, got some video. The audio wasn't that great. It was kind of my first time there. Now, we are a known entity in the XFL world, so when we come, people would know who we are, and I think it would be a lot of fun. I really hope that they do that again. All right, and finally in the chat room, let's see here. David says the XFL needs a team in. Oh, you got him. Paladin says XFL should sue the NFL for trying to take the Defenders. The NFL sued them for the Roughnecks logo. Fair game. I agree with that. But that's not going to happen. Richard, I really hope ESPN, Disney, Netflix to be televised streaming service for the XFL. Alistair says XFL should award teams that don't have an NFL team. We've talked about that before. The reason why they pick those locations is because they've been proven entities in their big markets. I understand that we would like to have locations where areas where they don't have an NFL team, and I think maybe that could happen in the future. But in your initial run, you need those big markets to get the juice going for the XFL. That's why they pick those things. So thanks, everybody. Oh, and Sandusky, Ohio, bro, says, what about the CFL? This steals players. Absolutely. There was something like 167 rookies up for Rookie of the Year in the CFL. A lot of players retired because of the pay cuts. Sean Oakman that's been tearing it up, and a lot of the former XFL players. And what are they going to do when the USFL? I don't know if they're going to leave when the USFL comes around. We'll see how many CFL players go to the USFL, but I very well wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them jump ship to the XFL when it comes around. Because Hub City is one thing, XFL with cities and season tickets and all that jazz with The Rock, Danny Garcia, Redbird Capital behind him, and a good TV partner. I think a lot of those players would rather play in the XFL, and it would be less games. I know there was something where there was like, oh, CFL players make more, but and we'll see what the salary cap is going to be and those kind of things. But, they play more games in the CFL. They do get paid more. But when you throw in the conversion rate of the US dollar to Canadian, they wind up not making a lot of money playing in the CFL. So that's it, my friends, for this week. Remember, if you want to be part of the show, email podcast@XFL News Hub with your thoughts. Record an MP3 or video on your phone. We'll play it on next week's show. And leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere. Stitcher, the whole deal. And watch XFL Week in Review live at 8 p.m. Eastern every Monday. There you have it there. Remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Smash the like button. We really appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel, because if you like football, then you should like XFL News Hub, because you'll get all the latest football news outside of the NFL. CFL, last week of the season. It's been a lot of fun watching the CFL. Check out their games. This is the final week, and then we got playoffs. I'm excited to see that. I'm not going to any CFL games this year. However, next year I plan on, in May, hopefully going to Alabama to check out the USFL. And I definitely want to check out Fan Control Football in Atlanta as well. So those two spots that I am eyeing for 2022, especially if the XFL starts to ramp up and the USFL brings good numbers, we might have a little cash left over to be able to take those trips and get some great interviews and bring all of that news to you, my friends. All right, my friends, that's it for this week's show. Thank you for everybody in the chat room hanging out. As always, enjoy Monday Night Football. I think it's a good game on tonight. I forget who it is. That's it for me, folks. Remember, xflnewshub.com/xfl-podcast. Hopefully we get an announcement from the USFL that we can talk next week leading into Thanksgiving. Should be a lot of fun. Spend time with your family. Thanks for listening. Mahalo. Of course, always God bless out there, my friends. Stay safe out there. Enjoy football. Enjoy life. Life is good. God is good. And I will see you all, you know what I'm going to say every time at the end. Later.